bit of extra time for a Q&A at the end. Welcome to the Finance Indaba, the biggest and the best Indaba on the African continent. My name is Ter Holman and I'll be moderating today. In this session, AI Unveiled, empowering finance professionals to navigate the hype. The session is brought to you by our Finance Indaba partner, 1618 Technologies. From understanding the latest trends to applying AI in practical scenarios, this session will equip finance professionals with the insights you need to stay ahead of a rapidly evolving landscape. Presenting the session today, we have Anna Bozzoni, Director of Strategic Accounts, Vena Solutions, Marcus Buerta, Director for BDO Tax Services and Tax Technology Lead, BDO SA, and Tim Dearden, Director, 1618 Technologies. Please a big round of applause, guys.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to come spend the session with us today. Thank you all for arriving so early. We're literally starting early, giving us some extra time. I'm going to be on. I'm actually starting my stopwatch because I've been known to talk for a while and then run over time. So they're going to put me on at 1 o'clock. We've done the introductions. Anna, Marcus, and I have worked together for 10, 12 years.
A long time.
A long time. And we've watched this space change over time. So, the best way to start this topic is to say, we're all doomed. The robots are taking over. We're all losing our jobs. There is no future for any of you. I was told that when I became a chartered accountant in the 90s. Everybody was telling us, we've been told our entire careers that we're going to get taken over by the robots. This time it's a bit more real though. This time it's a little bit more serious. But saying that, we're still a long way of it really taking over everything and everyone. Quick show of hands, how many people use AI in their day-to-day? Shout out, what do you use?
Emails.
Emails? Not sure that's AI. ChatGPT, yeah, we all use ChatGPT. Okay, anything else that anyone uses?
Copilot.
Yeah, Copilot, yeah. Anything else? Hazard a guess, how many AIs are there out there at the moment that you would be roughly aware of? More than 20? Any advance on 20? Approximately 7,500. Right? All purporting to do something, most of them doing very little. So I thought to myself, what do I do for this presentation? Let me try and build the entire presentation using AI. Well, that didn't work. You're going to hear us use these names today, just some of the brands we work with. We're going to gloss right over them. You may have seen these pictures in the Finance Indaba website, and I deliberately put this really bad picture up here. Because AI says I look like this. And if any of you think I look like that, especially the ladies, please leave your name and phone number.
I think now's the time to ask who wants to use AI.
Exactly. So, this begs the question, when you use AI, what are you getting as an answer? Are you seeing reality, or are you seeing someone's version of reality? Right? In this room, how many psycho members? Tax members? Who's going to qualify? Right? In your psycho membership you pay each year, you pay something that says, well, it's like you sign off, and you sign off on a code of ethics and a code of conduct. Who's trusting AI for your code of conduct? Show of hands. Right. We all desperately want AI to work, but you can't trust it yet. And there's some good reasons you can't trust it yet. I'm going to make lots of these statements in the session that we've got today, but I am actually a proponent of AI. I sit on the boards of a couple of different companies where we use AI extensively. One of them is a medical imaging company. And what we do is we take medical image scans and we run the entire national mammography program for the United Kingdom. We also run Heart Health Lung is the company. We also run prostate screening. For mammography now, you can go into a screening centre, you can have your mammogram, you can walk out the other side and have a diagnosis in under 30 seconds. That allows you to then be treated, and at so early a stage, you can now do it with a needle. Go in, take the bad cells out, no mastectomies, no issues off the other side. Really positive use of AI. Okay. Really negative use of AI. The London Metropolitan Police keep going around arresting people inappropriately because the facial recognition doesn't work properly. Right? You should be afraid. Right? So what are we really talking about? If you can't trust this, right? We all know, show hands in the room, who's watched Terminator? We all know Terminator, right? That's what we think of when it comes to AI. We've got everyone running around. We've got all these tech startups, and a little later I'm going to show you some graphs. We know it's coming. I can see by the age of the people in the room, we've played this game before, right? You're going to have to trust us on this one. There's a few people who saw the .com. Sorry, you're about the only person in this room who saw the .com. Right? We've heard this before, right? My job actually, post the .com, was actually going in and looking at all of the underlying companies that had supposedly a good business and working out which was real and what wasn't. One of the businesses I had to decompose when the stock price was 50 cents was Amazon. Right? And we actually got to see the underlying workings of Amazon and work out it's actually real. It was a real company. There were approximately 2,000 or 3,000 that weren't. Absolute garbage. Right? We're in that same space right now. Lots of things that work, but lots of things that don't work, and a lot of the claims of us saying we're going to replace all the jobs, everything's going. We're quite a long way off that at this point, and I think what we're going to see is a downturn off the other side, and then we'll work out what's real and what's not. So, what is artificial intelligence? It's a nice definition. I'm not going to read it, you can have a look at it. Where did it come from? I pulled it off ChatGPT. Do I trust it? Right? So, anyone heard of the Turing test? Ever heard of it? Go and have a Google of it. The Turing test is a test that was devised to work out whether artificial intelligence could really replicate the human brain. Right? And it's very interesting. What it does, it takes us through, it takes whatever AI it is through a set of steps and says, can you fool a human? That's basically what it says. So can you actually replicate both in speech and in answers something that would replicate what a human would naturally do? The reason I ask whether you've ever heard of it is in June of this year, ChatGPT 4 passed the Turing test. So it can fool the average human. But remember, the average human is going to go and vote on the 5th of November, and perhaps the average human isn't where you want to benchmark yourselves. Okay. So, what do we have as AI? Right? Today, what we have is what we call narrow AI. So we can do things. We can recognize speech. We can do translations. Ever used Google Translate? Using the text, very interesting now if you travel somewhere, you can literally say to your waiter, talk, and it literally prints it out for you, or speaks it back to you in whatever language you want, and it works really, really well. Legal documents, those types of things. Everyone always comes up and tells me about the chatbots. So, show of hands in the room, who's used a chatbot that gave them the answer where you didn't have to resort to speak to a human? You managed to get it to work? I'm going to talk to you afterwards. I personally never managed to do it. Right? So we've got lots of things like Siri, Google Assist, Alexa, all examples of AI pretty much working quite well, but we're a long way of something replicating the human brain. And that's as much about processing as anything else. So you've all heard of NVIDIA, I'm sure. Right? So the quick answer here is, when you process information, do you do it sequentially, or do you do it in parallel? And the human brain has a whole bunch of synapses, and it can take all sorts of information all the time and go to making up your answer. For most of us, it does it in the subconscious. So for AI to work properly, it's got to do that naturally, it's got to do it seamlessly, and at the speed of the human brain. We're a long way off that. Lots of good uses for it, but we're a long way off that. So what does it do well? We've talked about customer services, we've talked about speech to text. Scanning legal documents I find really useful. Take a legal document, scan it in, and it comes back and tells you, here are the clauses you should be aware of. One of my specialty is taking a legal document that's already been signed off by a very, very expensive law firm and saying, this is my benchmark, and then I put the new contract in, and I say, where's the new contract different to the one I paid all that money for? And it comes back clause by clause and tells me, these are the things you have to go and concentrate on. It means you can take your legal bill down by about 80%. You can ask the legal team to go and focus on very specific things. So very, very useful. Okay? Pattern recognition. How many of you get a phone call from your bank going, we think we've got fraudulent activity in your account? Right? That's AI in action. Right? All it's doing is it's doing pattern recognition. I walked into a Timberland store in Covent Garden. I bought a leather jacket. It wasn't for me. They phoned me within about 5 minutes and knew it wasn't for me. So based on your spending patterns, you're not trendy enough to be shopping here, and wanted to stop the transaction. Right? Very good use of it. Right? Medical diagnostics we've talked about. By the same token, as our test, we put a cabbage in into an MRI scanner, basically testing it alongside brain scans, and it passed. Right? Algorithmic trading. Anyone here work for a bank? How aware are you of the stock markets? Most of the stock market activity at the moment is all algorithmic trading, mimicking AI. The problem is, why do we get these funny spikes and troughs in the stock market? Because if something goes sell, they all follow. So we're going to get now to why you have to worry about AI. Because we know general intelligence, we've talked about, not really there yet. We've got a small problem with bias and ethics. AI can't tell you what's right or wrong. Can't tell you, right? You make judgments all day, every day. Right? AI can't do that. It's only as good as the sample set it gave you. Right? And then, when it comes to creativity, if creativity could be done in AI, right, and I mean from painting to music to everything else, the pop charts would be just full of AI artists right now, and they're not. At the end of the day, we're all human, and we still have an ability to think and make judgments very differently to the way a computer can do it. My personal guess, based on where we are, we're 10, 20 years off that getting to a point where you really have to be concerned about it. For that gentleman, Marcus and myself, Ted maybe, not our problem. For all of you in your careers, you've still got to think about this. So no one's telling you that this is bad, and no one's telling you it's good. It's telling you this is a tool. And what we're going to spend the second part of the session showing you is some practical reasons as to ways in which you can use it, and practical things you have to think about. I put this one up here because one of the major things that you need to do all of this processing is the CPUs, electricity and storage. And who in this room thought Eskom was going to save their jobs? The amount of power you need to run AI is extraordinary. And the world can't produce that much right now. So while there's all this hype, again, it's going to be a long time, and I actually think quantum computing is what you have to worry about more than AI. Anyone know what quantum computing is? A little bit? Right. Uses quantum mechanics, but its speed of operations is so great, it's orders of magnitude bigger than anything we have today. And the real concern you have there is actually encryption. Because encryption works on the basis that your WhatsApp, your emails, whatever it is, encrypts it end to end. But quantum computing would be able to decode it fast enough in order to remove secrecy. And that's where you have to watch. So, I'm sure you've heard this before. If you don't pay for the product, you are the product. Right? So every time you go out and you put your information into an AI, right? If you're not paying for it, someone's harvesting what you're doing. They're using you. Just know that. Right? You've got to be careful with it. Right? So we get down to the meat of this. How do you deploy AI in an organization? You've got to think about the privacy of your organizational data. You've got to think about, well, the data itself might be HR data, it could be operational data, that's your internal corporate data, right? And then you've got to trust what this AI does with it. So you'll hear lots of people refer to it's okay, it's in the black box, right? As I said earlier, as chartered accountants, you're signing off on a code of ethics. Your job is to sign off on the final sets of numbers, right? Be careful what you're signing and careful how you're using it, right? So this graph, in its form, I said I did get AI to generate in its entirety, right? Didn't touch it at all. Took me probably 90 seconds. Right? Very useful. Okay? The point it's illustrating is that you have the internet and all of these AI tools out there. You've got your organizational data, and you've got law enforcement agencies. Because the other directorship I have, which I didn't mention at the beginning, deliberately, was that I'm on the board of a company called Safe2Net. And what we're doing is using AI, and actually it's at a kernel level in phones, to pick up child pornography and to eradicate it from the internet. We ran it through TikTok and picked up 58 million images in 48 hours.
Sure.
Right? So it's so good that it can actually pick up things like poor densities. So it knows whether it's a child in an image or an adult. Huge implications. The implications are who deploys it. Right? The technology can do it. Now what do you get? Everyone holding their hands up. Mobile phone companies don't want to do it because no one wants to be the policeman. Right? Your internet service provider doesn't have the processing capacity to deploy it. Right? So it's going to end up in phones. It's going to end up at the kernel level of phones, so that when you buy the phone just won't be able to take the image. Right? So there are all these technologies that are out there, but now everyone's got to work out, where do the ethics lie? Who's doing what? Right? Where do your responsibilities lie? What are your responsibilities to yourself, to the corporate that you work for, and to the society that you live in? And Marcus is going to talk about this extensively. The problem is law enforcement's now ahead of the game. They're now deploying it. Anyone rented a SARS return recently and SARS came back and went, you spent £2.50 on a cup of coffee. Right? Well, they're deploying it. Right? So suddenly now, for the very first time, and Marcus will talk to this far more eloquently than myself, the agencies are ahead of the individuals. Never happened before. Okay. So, what should concern you? Facial recognition. Right? All those cameras up everywhere. Big police database, you walk down the street, someone takes your image, police come along, nail you off. Right? Happening a lot. Right? Medical diagnostics, it's a trust issue. Right? You trust your doctor. You haven't got to the point where you trust a computer yet. A computer, it's an aid, it helps. Self-driving cars. No country in the world has actually managed to deploy them because it means you need every single car to be a self-driving car. Then the system works perfectly. Introduce a human and not happening. Biggest issue I think is groupthink. By definition, you're taking all this data and feeding it into these models. That means everyone's thinking the same way. You know, all of your hiring policies and all of your companies will talk about diversity. The reason you bring in people with different backgrounds and different skills, you want people to tackle problems in different ways. Right now, AI is going to take you down a groupthink path. So these are the lessons learned when they've gone back and looked at all the mistakes that AI has made. If you chat GPT, it'll give you the same answer. I did use 3 or 4 other sources as well. It's basically, right? So training data quality, right? That's basically where your issue is. You've got to make sure that the sample set that the AI is training from is complete and correct for the purposes in which you want to use it and deploy it. It absolutely needs human oversight. You've got to have humans who just check it. Right? We're a long way before the computer can make that judgment. Privacy and consent. You put something in there that might have some HR data, you just destroyed the Poppy Act in 3 seconds. Right? And then, of course, avoiding the overhype. We're all pretending this is the greatest, latest thing since sliced bread. So here's a stock market chart. Right? So this happens to be the NASDAQ. I tried to get it to go back to the .com. And you know, with that big .com crash everyone talks about, and it was terrible, right? There it is. The financial crisis, the world is ending. There, right? We're here. Right? That looks like a lot of hype to me. Right? When you take the weighting bit, so that's the NASDAQ, and that's the S&P 500. So the NASDAQ is weighted so highly now that it's overriding the S&P 500. So Nvidia is trading at about a 300 PE at the moment. Right? It's a lot. Right? You've got to sell a lot of processors to make that stock price work. And we can see all these tools, 7,500 of them if you can go out and have a look at. And the best one I've found so far is the dog translator. I'm deadly serious. Go on Apple, go and download it. You can basically speak into it and it comes back, goes woof, 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 and my dog literally paid attention. And it was the best one I've found. ChatGPT, I use it every day. Why am I using it every day? I'm training it. Do I trust it every day now? No. But it's got to learn me. That's the point of AI. So I want it to be useful in a year's time. Right? And I'm going to stop because I'm through my 20 minutes, but a couple of things I just want to show you. I took ChatGPT and I tried to produce those graphs. So I went in and I said, please produce me a PowerPoint slide. And it came back and went, we're having an issue with that. Eventually took me to a Python script. I then downloaded Python, right, and still couldn't get an answer. Went in and just used Google, copy and pasted the charts and put them in there. So it's good, right, and it's getting there. Use it mindfully, right. It does take away repetitive tasks very well, right. It is going to help you, right? You're going to see examples now where you can actually use it and it can follow trends and it can help you and give you an idea of what, find the problems for you so that you can go and focus on the right things. It will help us all move into advisory roles because your ability to be able to take an entire set of accounts, use the AI to pull through where the issues are and then sit down and use your judgment, it's absolutely going to help with that. Be really careful with privacy. So all the technologies I showed you, of the brands I showed you right at the beginning, the first thing we do with customers is go, how are you ring-fencing your data? How are you protecting it? How are you keeping that internal to your organization? And how are you matching that to what you're using externally? Super important. Use your brains. Lots of ethical issues here. Really, really important. But I'm actually very excited about it. And I'm a huge skeptic. Anna's probably standing there laughing. She's heard me talk on the subject for a long time. For a long time I've gone, okay, we'll see. Right? For the first time, we are getting to the point where this is getting useful, but there's some real pitfalls with it today. Right? I'm going to hand you over to Marcus, who's going to talk specifically about some of the use cases from a tax perspective, and then Anna's going to show you some practical, real-life examples of the technology in action. Okay? Thank you very much.
I especially like the chat GPT bits. So for me, your biggest risk today, and it's two-sided, the first one is you will probably be replaced by someone who is using AI because they've got a better skill set. Not by AI. And for whoever you're working with, your corporate, assuming that everyone is at a corporate, will probably be under threat or at risk because 50% of tax administrations globally have made huge advancements in adopting AI. There's something called a digital transformation maturity model self-assessment. So, a big word. All the tax administrations have participated in it, And it gives you a nice little heat map if you want to look at this document. But in summary, on the left you have about 11 areas that they self-rated themselves on, and then it's at various stages of maturity. And the enabled rating, which is more or less in the middle of the rating scale, dominates this heat map. The whole thing is orange. They are all enabled. And it goes from API connectors straight into company data to then pushing for digital IDs and biometrics, and this is already happening in a lot of countries. Our own commissioner stood up at an OECD meeting the other day and also advocated for digital IDs in South Africa. They are looking at all data everywhere. To give you an idea of the vast amount of data that they already have, and most of us are not aware of this, there's something called automatic exchange of information agreements. So if you just have a bank account and you earn interest, the bank must issue you with a certificate and file that information with SARS, which is an automatic filing process. This is third-party data submission, that they call it. There's automatic exchange of information agreements between tax administrations. So they are exchanging this information with each other. And we've seen a ramp up in SARS's activity going in and auditing this at financial institutions. And one of my clients, they've been there twice in 2 years. And the Tax Administration Act provides for a criminal offense if they do not disclose this information. So whoever the directors are of these clients that we have, they're at risk now, and we're seeing SARS pushing this. So they're sending very threatening query letters on this, pushing financial institutions to disclose more. So I had a look at 2021's data, just to give you an idea of what because that's kind of when they started making real advancements with these exchanges happening. And back then, we had 11 billion records, and it amounted to 11 trillion euros in assets that has already been exchanged. And since 2021, it's been an exponential ramp up in what we've seen. The data is there. And the advancements that they've made, they all have very advanced digital transformation strategies in place that's been implemented with that data pool, so there'll be nowhere to hide. And if they start plugging into organizations with the APIs, they're going to pull that source data. So now what I'm personally seeing, because of the role that I have the opportunity to engage and interact with a lot of people at a lot of different levels. And I'm also involved at some of the universities, so not just the universities, but also the student bodies and communities. And we're busy going through a recruitment process at the moment for next year's trainee intake. And I decided to start asking some of these AI questions, just very generic, basic questions, to the guys applying for traineeship. In the last 2-3 weeks, I saw 18 candidates. One of them used ChatGPT to do a cover letter. Some of my questions were, give me your top 3 AI tools that you would use in a day-to-day scenario so that you can be more productive and efficient. That no one could get past one. They know ChatGPT. When you start talking to universities, it's not in the curriculum of the programs. They have not gone down that route. So if it's not at university level, what are we getting in the market then? How are we going to mitigate our risk if there's such advancements happening at a tax administration level? So now you're sitting with a big gap because this thing is running and we're not keeping up. We're struggling through our days, don't have enough capacity. Everyone is in that scenario. No one has time to go play around. So who's going to tell you what you need to look at, how are you going to adopt these skills? So adoption is going to we're going to start having serious conversations with universities to reconsider their approach on this. But it is senior management and leadership roles that will have to push the adoption on this. There was a very interesting piece of research done in 23. It was US, UK, and Canada. They looked at small to large firms, both tax and legal, and then they looked at corporates. And then they looked at tax administrations. And in this piece of research was about 2,600 over the three categories respondents that we had. The legal fraternity is ahead of the tax fraternity. Legal firms are adopting AI to draft, to do research. When we start looking at the tax fraternity, because obviously I'm very interested in that one, there's a Irish piece of research that was done looking at the tasks performed on each level, so a junior, a manager, a director within a tax firm, listing the activities. There were about, on average, 10 for each of them. Your first two activities, which is calculations and preparations of returns across the board, those are the activities at risk on all three levels. So in a role like mine, the bulk of the work that I do, managing people, helping clients with planning and managing risk, those type, making decisions, that doesn't feature. It's not at risk. So it's the legwork. That's where the benefit is going to come in. And that's where we have to start focusing our attention and get on top of the trends and what is available out in the market to help us in our daily jobs. But now, going back to the piece of research with the firms and the corporates, tax and legal firms and corporates, most people do not want AI. And those that do, they see it being used in drafting and research. The corporates are nowhere on this scale, because in a lot of those environments where we should have seen AI being adopted and used already, the tools are being banned for all the reasons that Tim gave you. We can't trust them yet. And we can't volunteer proprietary information and put things out in a public domain. So you're going to deal with a ring-fence scenario. It's on your intranet. It's custom built for that firm. It's only the firm's data to service the firm's clients. In the corporate scenario, you're going to have a similar situation. So with the research that we looked at, so it was the Thomson Reuters Research Institute, if you want to have a look at that study that was done in 2023. At that point, and it was the early part of 23, when they asked the questions to these respondents, more than 50% of them expected within 6 months that this situation would change exponentially. We're now at the end of 24, nothing has happened. We're still in the same position than what we were back then. And I think this is going to persist or continue for the time being until the tools sort themselves out. There's too many of them. They all do the same thing at a very basic level, and they all need data to improve. And when corporates and firms are going to ring fence and clamp down and ban, the data pool is not going to be there. So it's going to be a very interesting space to see, because you need investment. There's a whole lot of development that need to happen, and then you need to get your data there. And the data is the problem. If we take the API scenario, where SaaS will just come and plug in to your ledger or your TB from your ERP, you usually find that those ledgers are slimmed down. So you're sitting with a TB number that would have pulled into a tax return, and now SaaS plugs in and pull that same TB number. They want transactional information. We're all sitting in our tax or finance departments doing things manually or in Excel running around collecting data because we have a slim ledger, we don't have enriched data. But SARS is now asking questions. So you're going to be in a situation where you're chasing your tail. And that's one of the bigger risks that we're dealing with, is getting our clients to start thinking ahead. You can't continue with a slimmed down version of your financial data when the receiver is going to be doing trend analysis, plugging straight in, asking detailed questions. There was an article in the last week or so from Daily Investor. SARS published an RFP, I think it's now 4 weeks ago, maybe 5, where they asked all the firms, consulting firms, so legal and tax, small and big, to participate in the proposal. They wanted from each firm about 88 staff that you would dedicate in your proposal response across different levels, across all the tax types, to assist them. If I look at the data that they've been collected, the tools that they've now started using, and then asking firms to provide specialist resources, when you start connecting these dots, we can see where they're going. On this article, I always immediately scroll down to the bottom to go look at comments, because that's where you get all the interesting information from. And in the commentary for this article, there was a lot of questions were raised on, is it ethical for a firm to now go work for SARS and then also advise the client? So obviously that's an area. Most of the firms did not respond, only one firm responded because of this issue. Also, capacity constraints. We can barely service our clients, never mind dedicate all our staff to SARS. But that's where it's gone, and that's your risk. I have a limited amount of time, and Anna has some good things to show. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Just go through the slides to where I need to be. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here. You can hear me okay? My microphone is a little, trying not to dislodge it from my neck over here. So I'm Anna. I work closely with both Marcus and Tim. They are partners of the company that I work for, which is Vena Solutions, which is a FP&A, financial reporting, operational reporting platform that really spans Office of Finance and a lot of different operational processes as well. Really, we are here to talk about how we use AI and all the different constraints and cons and things you should be concerned about that both Marcus and Tim mentioned. How have we used the technology to apply it in Office of Finance in a responsible, ethical, and a secure way? But before we do that, as a platform, we are a Microsoft unicorn partner. Now, what that means essentially is that we work very closely with Microsoft and use a lot of their technology to co-develop and co-build specific processes and platforms and solutions for the space of Office of Finance. So I'm not going to bore you too much with that. If you want to know more about details about all the different things that our technology does and how it connects to your data, your processes and people, we are in a stand outside and we can show you all the more details on that. I really am going to focus about our AI offering, which comes at the end of that process. Right? So once we have gathered all of this data, we have connected everything, we have defined our structures, we want to use that data and a vast amount of it more efficiently. We want to give our users the time to do the things they want to do, the learning they want to do, the analysis they want to find in their data. So we have partnered with Copilot. So our solution is called Vena Copilot, and I often get asked, aren't you going to get sued? Well, we're not going to get sued because it is Microsoft Copilot. But it is Microsoft Copilot that has been specifically trained and ring-fenced for the Office of Finance. Now that means a few things. It's the only current generative AI tool in the market that is built to work with Microsoft Copilot that is truly integrated. It is also subject to your company policies, data security, and individual user access. And what I'm going to demonstrate for you and actually show you how it works is there are certain questions you're going to ask it. There's things it's going to answer, because it's things it has to answer, and it knows, has access to it. It knows if you're selling steel beams, how many steel beams you've sold. It knows what your revenue is. But it also should not have access to any information that is not relevant in your environment, in your company. And a lot of what we see in the market at the moment, and this is one of the things where Tim said, if you put your information to ChatGPT, say, here's my financials, can you analyze it for me? Everybody who's got ChatGPT can see that information. Which is why corporates don't want you to use it, because they don't want their information, or actually not even corporates, any organization, private companies, anybody who's competing out there for market share, which is everyone, do not want their competitors to have that information. So what our Copilot does, it actually keeps all your data in one place. It is based on ChatGPT 4, the one that everybody knows. That is the language. It combines that large language model with a specific FP&A set of training tools. So we have taught it to think like an accountant, in the general sense of the word. What we've also done is saying, well, each company is different. I may call it net income. You're going to call it net profit. You're calling it something completely different. You've got specific acronyms, short TLAs, all the different terminology that are specific to your business. And you want the users who are interacting with your data to be able to use that. So you've asked a question, for example, of ChatGPT. Plan a trip to Europe. There is a set of assumptions it's going to make. A, I'm not in Europe because I want to plan a trip. It's a thought process, right? I mean, I'm not really thinking, but it's making a set of assumptions. And the same thing in your data. If I just quickly go and ask it, tell me what is my revenue for 2023? It's got to assume, okay, do I want actual revenue? Do I want budget revenue? Do I want to see a forecast? There is a whole of things that it's going to have to assume and interpret and come up with an answer that's appropriate. And that's where the teaching of it comes in. So with our model, it's also an ability for our customers to teach that language, that model, the very bespoke and relevant terminology and the way you're using your information in your organization. On top of, on top of, obviously, the generic access to the FP&A and financial information that it has. So that's my slide deck done, and I actually want to show you what the tech looks like. We had some Wi-Fi problems, so I'm just going to hope that this is all working. So I'm actually physically logged into our technology platform. We have lots of different things that you're seeing here. This is an example of our dashboard, which is again another one of Microsoft AI type of products. This is Power BI, which is embedded within our technology that does all your predictive analytics, all your narrative commentary. It uses AI. It analyzes the patterns, spits out the forecast that it has, but that's not the Copilot aspect of it. So this is obviously any type of information. The difference, people have been asked, what's the difference between Venn Copilot and Microsoft Copilot? We built it together, right? We took what Microsoft did and we tweaked ours to be bespoke to what we need. However, when you've used Copilot before, there was a few hands that went up early. What have you noticed when you use Copilot? In Excel, for example. When you ask it questions, it will answer on the data that you have in your spreadsheet. That's what it's limited to. Same in your Word document, same in your PowerPoint. Then our Copilot, even though we are Microsoft-centric technology, all of our outputs are either in Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI. However, when I ask a question, and I'm going to just fire up Copilot, and I want to talk about financial analysis. So it says, all right, how can I help you? So I've got, because I can't remember, I've got some cheat notes here of questions I wanted to ask it. And the very first thing I'm going to do, because you don't want to see me type, really the typers will be terrible, is ask it. So what is my total revenue broken down by month in 2023? And true demo style, it's going to take a minute.
It's going to take a minute because you are literally on
the last bit of the Wi-Fi.
Oh, you're on the Wi-Fi, man.
Yes, we are on the Vodacom network.
Oh,
Where
okay.
is it is, we are having a hotspot on my phone. So I'm going to submit this as a question. We're having to hotspot on my phone because there are so many people here today that the Wi-Fi is taking kind of a slowdown. So this might take a little bit of a time, but essentially it's going back and it's given me my breakdown by month of the total revenue that it has access to. Now, I have not selected my financial model that I want to report on. I have not selected a spreadsheet. I've just simply asked it a question, and it knew that out of the vast set of information that we have, you can see and it's not just in the dashboard. There's lots of things happening behind the scenes. There's a database. There's transactional drill down information that I've got there. None of it which you can see, but the bot can. So it goes in and asks those questions. You can also download this. So if you've done this, you've downloaded this report, and I'm using it on my iPad, but you can use it on anything, obviously. It's much better when you use it on a computer when you're downloading things. But essentially, it can put that into an Excel document, and there's my data.
So I can do my recruitment for talented people that can do voice notes.
Yes, you can send voice notes. That's exactly what I'm doing. And
You
again,
still
this
have
is
to know
excellent.
what question to ask.
Yeah, that's
And
indeed you do. I mean, that's just, asking it to tell me about the data that I have in the system. But now, I use ChatGPT often to not show me what to do, but like how to do it. So I will use ChatGPT often if I get a, say, LinkedIn message, and it's very good. I don't want to say, thanks. And it turns out I want to be a little bit more elaborate, but I haven't got the words. So I will go and say, ChatGPT, can you please write me a response that is sincere based on this? And it will go and do that. So in Venner Copilot, I'm going to ask it to ask me what questions about revenue in 2023 I should ask when I'm preparing for a board meeting. So it's going to come back, and this could come back with it. It's depending how you ask the question. So I'm going to ask it a bit differently, but I'm sure it's going to come back and say, here we go. When preparing for a board meeting, consider asking the following questions. Now, why is this important? Now you can prepare because it knows what kind of questions you're likely to be asked. So you can have those answers. And you can actually go through this and say, okay, great, that's perfect. So let's use some of those questions. And can we identify any key drivers or factors that contributed to the revenue performance in Q1 2023? So I'm just going to change that to or, because clearly I can't speak very clearly, so it interprets it as, trust me, my typing would be worse. And there it is. So, based on the data, the revenue figure for January is X, without additional data, and you compare it to X, it just blah, 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 it needs more comparative data. Right. So, again, going back right to before you even think about AI, in any reporting system, you need to make sure your data is good. It's structured correctly, it actually fit for purpose, it's got integrity. You've got audit trail exactly where it is from beginning that it hits your reporting system, right to the end when it goes out into those glossies that are going out to your stakeholders. All right, my last little thing, we talked about security. It's all fully secured. So there's lots of data here. We've got financial data, we can have revenue, operational data. We also can have HR data. We do a lot of workforce planning at employee level. And what does that mean? The system has everyone's salaries information in here. Okay. So, what is Frank Jones's salary? Not celery. Salary, there we go. Can you see that it corrected it? You can have to type it corrected to salary, but now I don't need it twice, so let's take that out and let's fire off this question. Now this is going and checking my permissions. So I'm logged in as Frank today. I'm Frank today. Frank doesn't have access to salary information. Frank is a business unit owner for a department, so he knows he's going to spend 5 million on salaries, because that's what HR told him. But he doesn't know how that 5 million is made up. He doesn't know what I earn. So there, that's exactly what it's told me. And if you have a look at here in the small letters at the bottom, it says Venner Copilot responses, which are AI generated. may be incorrect and are limited to the data permissions. So it won't tell you what you're not supposed to know, regardless of the level.
By the way, there are about 5 or 6 real-world examples happening right now where people loaded up their salary data and it's created organisational chaos.
Yeah.
Where people asked that exact question and got their entire senior management's pay cut.
And also, last but not least, this is really with that, is can you tell me about bananas? Now, unless you are selling bananas and you're in a farming business, they should have nothing to do with it. So I should get, I'm sorry, there's an unexpected error that occurred. It doesn't know what you're talking about. It hasn't been told about bananas, and it shouldn't be. So, you know, it's a great tool. The way we're going to use it is to improve your efficiency, to ask it to do the legwork for you, to talk to it while you're driving, because you just got a phone call to say, can you please give me this information? And you want to get it so that you can oversee it when you park your car somewhere. That's what you can use it for. It's a tool to use your time more efficiently, to do the things you want to do, not to do the things you have to do. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy that. If you want to see more, please come visit us at the stand and play around with it. You can come and talk to it, type in your questions, give it a go.
Thanks, guys. That's good. We've got, they've told me to be very strict with time, so we've got 4 minutes for questions. Does anyone have a question? Otherwise, you can go and find these guys. They will be on the floor, and you can get all the information you need to know. Surely someone's got a question. I've got lots of questions.
So you mentioned the number of AI tools that are available. You share the top 5. I know top 5
I like Chat PDF. So you can take a PDF document and you can upload it, and it will tell you, it'll give you a summary of the document. I find that one very useful.
Is it part of the ChatGPT?
It is, but if you go into ChatGPT, top left-hand side, and click into the other things that are available, there are about 1,000 different sub-versions within ChatGPT that you have access to. But Chat PDF I find very, very useful.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I just want to ask with the Vena Copilot, is it familiar with different standards whereby maybe you are struggling with how to treat a transaction? Does it advise you on how which standard does it fall under and how to classify it?
So from an accounting, do you mean as in a debit or credit, or do you mean company 1 buying company 2 in the advisory? In which case you phone Marcus. So it will ask you a set of questions. Is this an asset? Is it a liability? Is it an expense? Is it a revenue? And it should know that from the hierarchies that you've uploaded, but it should know that. Was that your question?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's, as long as it's a routine transaction, that will be very basic and you'll be able to manage that. But when there's complexity to a non-routine transaction, it will not give you advice.
I wouldn't want to challenge it to say, I'm making an accrual and does this become a contingent liability, and how do I force my note disclosures on my stat account? I don't think it'll give you the right answer yet.
To add to that, it is a trainable model. So as I said, you can edit the rules. So you get the set of language rules in it, that obviously it has a broader understanding of what you're asking. But you can be specific about those rules, so you can actually edit that rules engine and add to it. So you can put in a saying, if somebody asks the question of how to classify transactions, this is what I want you to consider. So not only are you able to edit those rules, it obviously learns from itself as well. So I don't know if you saw, I had this little thumbs up and thumbs down in there. So if it gives you an incorrect answer and you say, it will automatically discount that from its priorities. Anything that you say that's correct, it keeps evolving.
But if you keep saying something that was correct is bad, then it's going to learn the wrong thing. And that's what group
Like a
think problem.
toddler. It's like a toddler.
Yeah.
We reinforce positive behavior.
Okay, guys, you've sadly run out of time. It's been fascinating. I'm not even in the finance section, so it's been wonderful. A big round of applause for everyone.